Welcome back. I thought I'd do an episode today on the trade deadline. We have quite a bit of teams that are starting to separate from the rest now that we're at All-Star Weekend and the season's quickly coming to an end. Um, get a good sample size for everything now so we can see what's happening around the league. I wanted to start the episode by talking about Chris Eley. I don't know if many of you have been paying close attention to the Cincinnati Reds superstar. This is probably like one of the best hitting prospects I've ever seen in the draft. When he was drafted, we've talked about him quite a bit, but when he was drafted, he had like 70 contact potential, 60 power potential, and super high void K. So he was absolutely ridiculous. The only thing he didn't have that was exceptional was the eye, but still really good, still major league quality. Was like a 35, which is still really advanced for the draft, but just wasn't like quite like the other categories. But if you look at his ratings, the guy is 80, 80, 80 in the contact power and avoid K and pretty much gap against righties. So he's one of the most ridiculous righty matchers of all time, which like 71% of major league pitchers are righties. So 71% of the time, he's like one of the best hitters ever. And he's still pretty good against lefties. He's a plus bat for sure. So he's just absolutely ridiculous. Has pretty much like the real life Juan Soto. Not from an age perspective of playing early or anything, but just of a pure, like beautiful hitting prospect. And similar to Juan Soto, he's like a 50 left fielder type thing. So really, really similar there. If you look, his high work ethic should be around a long time. He's only 24 years old. The most ridiculous thing about him, he has a 200 OPS plus, which is like the Barry Bonds territory, getting up there. Not many guys have done that in the last like 30 years, consistently over a full season. It's pretty amazing what he's done. So if you look at his splits, he had some injuries in the middle of the year. He didn't really play in May at all, only half of April. So if you look at what he's done lately, he's hit. He had 12% walk rate, which is really good. Maybe shows his eye might even be above a 50. July is the one I want to point out. So 14 games this month, the guy's hitting 345 with a 410 on base percentage. The guy has a 1.6% strikeout rate over 61 plate appearances with 4 home runs. So the avoid K is just like asked. Anything under 20 for a star slugger is just ridiculous. Like the best hitters in baseball, the guys that like in the game but like have like a 60 avoid K that also have power, like the really rare hitters like the Mookie Betts of the world, that have like an 18% strikeout rate type thing. The Aaron Judges and those guys have like sometimes up to like 25% strikeout and even up to 35% for some of those really raw hitters like Austin Riley in Atlanta kind of thing. So the guy has a 1.6% strikeout rate in this month, 6.5 on the year. So the guy, Albert, like talked about, I think on a post I made before, Albert Pujols had like a 9 or 10% strikeout rate most of the years in his career years in St. Louis, where he was hitting like 320, winning batting titles, and being one of the best hitters of the decade. Generational type bat. That's kind of like just shows how good Chris Eley is. It's like a 6% strikeout rate. So the guy can hit like absolutely mash the baseball, hit doubles, hit triples. Just an insane talent. And I remember that draft. He went third overall. So he actually went behind Phil Peters and the pitcher, I think, for the Cubs. And then it was him. And then Peterson went after that. So yeah, just like we keep talking about those guys, but just shows how ridiculous of a draft that was. But Chris Eley, really, really, really special. So I just thought I'd point that out if you guys hadn't been paying close attention to the Reds there. If you look at, we'll go back to the main objective of this video, kind of like the playoff races here. The Atlanta Braves are pulling away in the NL East. This is probably the first year in the entire 9 years that the NL East hasn't had about 2 or 3 teams battling really close for playoff spots. Atlanta's a really good baseball team, so they're starting to pull away. They just have a ton of talent spread all across their bullpen and their lineup and their starting pitcher. So really balanced, just really solid team overall. Me and the Mets, both are about the same. I'm struggling real hard. The Mets trade away some of their older guys, but they're still almost a 500 ball club thanks to some like solid pitching. And a few guys like Robert Hassel are still really good. They have the last 2 teams here, Washington and Miami, really struggling. This season, Washington just rebuilt a little bit, made some nice trades, picked up some future talent. So they had an unlucky year. They weren't playing too well. And it's kind of turning the page to next year. So see what happens. He made some nice moves. He didn't get super young prospects. He got guys that are kind of major league ready. So it shouldn't be a long-term rebuild. It should be kind of like a retooling. Pittsburgh here and St. Louis are just always neck and neck in the Central, but Cincinnati's lurking right behind them. It's not crazy to think Cincinnati can kind of catch up. St. Louis, I thought, would be a bit better than a 56% win percentage team. They are they're pretty loaded across the board here, hitting and pitching. So I guess I don't know if they're playing a little bit worse than the run differential or what's happening there, but it looked to me, they look roster wise like a 63% win percentage team. So we'll see if them and Pittsburgh, one of those teams, can pull away here in July, August, September. They both really loaded clubs, and that's always like a race to look out for sure. Both those teams in the hunt there. Cincinnati playing really well. They've really pulled away from these other two teams that they've been grouped up with the last few years here. Cincinnati with LA and a couple of those guys really separated. So they're right in the thick of the playoff race, only 3 games back of the third spot there, which the Dodgers currently hold. The Dodgers, speaking of that, everyone knows these two teams in the West, Colorado Giants, have been talked about a lot. Both incredible ball clubs, 66 wins there, 69% win percentage from the Giants, nice, and a 75% win percentage from the Rockies, just ridiculous. Rockies were pretty much on pace for that all-time win record. This last a week or two really hurt them. 4-6 record kind of takes their pace down from like 125 wins to like probably like 112, 120. So we'll see if they can recover and get that record. But 4-6 streak in 10 is actually pretty surprising for how good they've been all year. The Dodgers, really the surprise here, in my opinion, in the NL. Probably the Dodgers, the biggest surprise, maybe. The Reds have been pretty good too, but the Dodgers I didn't think would be quite this competitive. The young pitching has really stepped it up. You got some really, really nice looking arms here. Jared Pitts looks like a real solid starter for multiple years here. The lineup though is where they've gotten most of their WAR. Pretty sure it's weird because they're like 5th in slugging percentage, and they're actually 8th in WAR, and they're only 13th in pitcher WAR. So the pitchers actually the WAR is a little lower than I thought it'd be. I guess just Pitts is playing well. The other guys look okay, but I guess really only Abreu and Pitts have much WAR here. So it's really the hitters that actually a little bit more, but it's really these two guys. That's a real core to build around. DeRosa has been ridiculously good, on pace for 4 WAR first base season DH type thing. I think he's playing DH. Tristo's the first baseman at 75 defensive rating. Both those guys, just absolute mashers, and they should be a really scary duo for a long time. And the David Ortiz and Manny kind of duo there, just like a real strong middle of the lineup. So those, and you can't forget Brad here. Brad is actually on pace for more WAR than both those guys, as he's a position player that plays pretty solid defense. So actually, you kind of call him like more of a triplet. That's a really special group of guys there. So that should be a team that should be pretty solid for a long time, as long as they keep that core together. Arizona have actually been passed by the Dodgers. Arizona is still neck and neck to that playoff race. So it's really going to come down to, looks like St. Louis and the Giants, I'd imagine, will for sure lock up spots there. So that third wildcard spot is just going to be a all-out brawl. Most likely, unless St. Louis or Pittsburgh falls off, it's probably going to be a duel, just a brawl between the Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Reds. I don't think me or the Mets will be too competitive. We'll see, unless I get lucky and have a big streak here in the coming couple weeks. But my team's really not playing well this year, so I'd be surprised. But we'll see. It should be a really good battle, though. Dodgers, Diamondback, Reds all really have really good hitters. The Diamondbacks obviously have some big bats in that lineup. And the Reds we just talked about have LA, Brady House, a couple big guys. So my bet would probably be on the Diamondbacks, but that Dodgers team is playing really well right now at 52 wins. So we'll see. The AL. So anyways, to finish off the NL before I move to the AL, actually, we'll just say the Rockies look pretty loaded up. Wouldn't be surprising if the Giants made a move. The Braves probably will stay pat because they look like they're pretty comfortable in first place there. They might pick up a bullpen arm or something, but the teams I'd be looking for to make some big moves would be these three here. The Reds probably to try to jump into the playoffs for the first time in a long time. Could maybe make a move to bring in a big talent. And the Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh and the Cardinals really battling against each other, and they are always kind of trying to equal each other out with those deadline moves. So it wouldn't surprise me one bit if both those teams are very active trying to bring in a big time deadline acquisition here. We'll see. The AL, we have Boston, Toronto really going neck and neck. Toronto is playing fantastic this year. Their run differential is actually like almost 60 runs better than Boston. Just ridiculous how well they're playing. I was trying to figure out why they were so good, because when I first looked at that roster, they didn't look like they'd be that good this year, in my opinion. But boy, was I wrong. I guess Jared Potts is his rating's gone through the roof there. He looks like a star. But they got Sean Poppin over 2 WAR. Hugh Smith is a real stud. And then obviously position player wise, like you got Shea here on pace for almost 4 WAR. And then you got the really good defensive shortstop, both with 80 range there, platooning lefty righty. The real special group is the outfielders. The Grisham, Shepard, and Vallejo are on pace for like 17 WAR combined for 3 outfield spots. You got Grisham is just ridiculous with the eye, 14% walk rate, just a really like solid all around player with some nice bat power, eye defense. Shepard is the real surprise of the season. This guy is a random ass free agent that just entered the game in 2028 with no history at all. Was never in the drafts or anything. He just joined up, signed for $1 million, and the guy's on pace for 8 WAR. So one of the most ridiculous, probably the highest WAR rookie season of all time. Actually, if he keeps up this pace, just insane talent. Love stuff like that in the game where they add random guys. Kind of come out of nowhere. Danny Vallejo is on pace for 5 WAR and 43 home runs. A huge pickup, 150 OPS plus. Really good defender and right. Just an insanely talented dude. So between Grisham, Shepard, and Vallejo, though, as you can see, like their WAR totals right here on my screen is 3, 4, and 4.8 and 2.4 right now. So crazy. And then obviously Vladdy and Rizzo. So it's just a lot of really ridiculous hitters and some good pitchers. So I guess I was a little bit wrong in underestimating the Blue Jays quite a bit. Baltimore is 1-9 in their last 10, really hurting lately, but they should be able to recover and still hold on to the playoffs. That's a really talented team, but we'll see what happens there. You got the White Sox really pulling away in the Central there. The White Sox having a fantastic year. They're looking comfortable with a huge lead there, and they shouldn't relinquish that, but we'll see. Cleveland has a really good team. Voodoo's not far behind them. So we'll see if those two teams can battle for that third wild card spot. But the White Sox looking pretty good right now. And then you got a really good battle in the West, probably the best battle in the game right now. My three favorite battles would be definitely the AL East between those two teams, and then you get Pittsburgh and St. Louis in the NL Central, and then the AL West is the best one. You get 3 teams within 5 games of each other. Awesome talent on all 3 of those teams. You got superstar position players, and then each team has about 2 really good pitchers, starting pitcher-wise, and then solid bullpen. So you just get really balanced, similar teams there. Houston has the huge bats and Bellinger and Pena. A couple aces have really turned into some really good players. You got Maxwell and Lacey and Tracy are all really good and huge Quantrill signings. So that pitching has really stepped it up compared to years past. And then obviously you got Texas has this superstar Bannister in center field there. Not quite staying as healthy as you'd like him to, or like him to lately, but for that stretch run, but should be able to just a little day to day. But hopefully he can not avoid another injury. He's fragile, so I know he had an injury a couple years ago, but played 161 games and then 140 games in the 92. So if he can stay healthy the rest of the year, that'll be key. But you got couple big star position players there. The real one that's had a really good year here is Balnick. Balnick kind of snuck up out of nowhere. Really good college progression post draft. Just kept getting better and better. He's on pace for almost 5 WAR, so he's actually pulled ahead of Robert Gonzalez. You could almost say he's the second best outfielder there, which is surprising because Gonzalez looks like a star early on, but he hasn't quite had that breakout season yet. 27 years old. Still really talented player though. So yeah, really talented roster there in Texas, obviously too. And then the Angels have been awesome this year on the defensive side of things. And pitching wise, not quite as great lately. Like last time I looked, they were second and third and everything, and like second best defense. So, but the bats have actually stepped it up a little bit. But yeah, really balanced team. They're good at everything too. So exciting to see who pulls away in that AL West division. Yeah, I'd imagine that's another division. Those teams have like stayed kind of relatively quiet. Texas never really makes any big moves. They're pretty balanced and patient. And kind of play the long game, so they haven't had a history of making that big deadline acquisition in the last few years. But we'll see. This might be the year to make them move in such a tight battle there. And Houston always seems to play better in the second half of the year. So they've been definitely a second half team a lot of these years in TLG, so they might actually be able to catch up and win that division. So really exciting to see what happens. That'll be it for this episode. I just was excited to talk about LA and a couple things there. And the first overall pick race is exciting too to end it off, like I talked about in that post on Slack for that superstar, couple superstar prospects in the draft. That middle infielder guy with like 60 bat, and then the superstar center fielder franchise type players. So it looks like right now you got Chicago and Detroit in the front seat, but for that first and second overall pick. But New York and Seattle are really close. So if any of these teams go on a run, that will kind of change things up. But something to definitely keep an eye on when you get a special draft with definitely some franchise altering talents. It's kind of exciting for some of those lower win total teams. Anyways, that's it. Cheers.